we talk about big being in the little body. That's one of the terms I use for this new paradigm, that you arrive, they arrive, they're who they are. They're these amazingly conscious, aware creatures, but they're in these tiny little bodies right after birth. And they're not equipped to do a lot of the things that we do. The reason why we talk about the brain a lot is because when you understand that, it really frames the new paradigm in a whole different way. Again, what we used to think was there was good behavior and bad behavior, and you had to parent, and discipline that bad behavior. But what we now know is the brain is really significantly influential in how people behave. And when you understand that, and you understand that often when they're doing things like not listening or having meltdowns even at 9 or 10 or complaining about stuff that's happening, it has far less to do with their personality and your parenting and far more to do with what's happening in their brain, because that thing is working really hard to wire in all the stuff that it's going to need to deal with this world. Basically, what we now understand about the human brain is that it's not just one brain in there, and it doesn't develop linearly. It's actually 3 brains. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but for parenting purposes, this is enough. And the bottom line is the 3 different brains have really different purposes, that we don't just come in all wired up and ready for action. We come in with just our very primitive brainstem wired. That's where the neurons are connected at birth. And what that part of the brain is all about is survival. It doesn't care about connection or language or being human. It's basically just, am I going to survive? If I'm safe, I'm pretty calm. If I'm overdone and overwhelmed and out of sorts, and I'm perceiving that as threat, then I'm going to go into fight or flight. And I'm going to either be freaking out, or I'm going to be shutting down and not able to connect and not able to really interact. And then at about 6 weeks, after they've been cared for and attuned to, and somebody's there that they can start to depend on, there's a shift in the brain that happens very naturally toward more of an interactive experience. And that is where our limbic brain, the yellow brain on the sheet, starts to get wired. And that brain, so we've got the survival brain, and then that middle brain, the limbic brain, is our mammal brain. And that brain is looking for connection. And it's looking for emotional communication. So that brain is not a verbal brain. And I promise you this is going to be relevant still to your lives, so stick with me. That brain is definitely all about emotion and attachment and connection, and it's communicating non-verbally. And that's a really important brain to understand, especially for where your growers are right now. So then, at about a year, this neocortex starts to kick on. And that's when your little people were starting to sign language and use words and walking around. And that part of the brain is just all about trying to acquire information and express who they are. And that's their creative selves. And that's where the language is. And that's when they're super cooperative with you, and you're like, wow, you're acting so much wiser and more, amenable to life than you have. You are a genius. But really what it is that they're just feeling really good, and they're operating from this human place. What you really want to understand is that as much as they're becoming these amazing human rational people, it takes a lot of energy to be in that part of your brain. And they're not going to be a lot of the time, especially when they're with you. So, period, exclamation point, like underline. That you're not going to get the most evolved human part of them most of the time, because you're the place where they can actually go and relax from all of it. And that doesn't always come in a pretty package. It can come in a really super messy, ugly, non-fun way. And the reason for that is because the way that we deal with our stress and the way that we manage our emotional system, our nervous system, is that when we're full up, when we have a lot of resource, when we've done exercise and we've had good nutrition and we've been able to handle what's coming at us, and we've even been excited about something, we can be nice and human. It's like plugging your phone in. You charge up the battery and you have access to the most evolved version of yourself. same goes with them. But as soon as you start learning, and as soon as you start dealing with social situations, and as soon as you are tired and overdone, the brain starts to slip and you move into a different brain state. And so what Dan Siegel says is that you can flip your lid and you're not dealing with human person anymore. You're not operating from an awareness that's human. You're operating from a more primitive part of your brain. And so when you flip and you start to get overdone, you don't freak out yet. That's down here. That's our lower brain, our reptile brain. But you go into this mammal brain, which is cranky and whiny and crispy. The reason that we go there is because we've been, specifically for your small people, they've been at school kind of holding it together all day. I mean, having a great time. They're not thinking, wow, I'm hanging on by a thread here, people. But the second they see you, the second they see their safe base, their attachment figures, they're like, oh, right, I'm overdone. Wah! Or just whine, 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 whine. And again, old paradigm would go, you may not whine, that is not okay. New paradigm would go, all right, take a breath. This isn't awesome, but this is not this person being bad or whiny or, misbehaving. This is a really little human that went from a 7-pound creature to this, 50, 60, 70-pound person who is in school learning all day and dealing with people and new stuff. I'm going to figure out a way to cut them some slack. Certainly, we're not going to go with that behavior, but we're certainly not going to try to make you have to hold it together even more. I mean, you can. It's not the end of the world, but when you know this, you just want to be more, I hope it engenders more compassion. Like, it's a lot to be a little person managing a big experience like school for that many hours. I want every single human to know this because it changes us from a paradigm of that has to be managed, that's not okay, that's bad behavior, to, oh, they can't do it yet. They're only 2, 5, 10, 15 of 100 years. We've got a long way to go. We didn't evolve like horses where you pop out of the womb and in a few minutes you're up and going. Like, it's a 21 to 25 year process.